You saw it. That little read notification sitting there. No reply, no explanation, just silence. And within seconds, your brain was already spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Are they mad at me? Did I come on too strong? Here's the uncomfortable truth no one talks about. Your brain doesn't know the difference between being ignored online and being rejected in real life. And that confusion? It's costing you your peace, especially at night, when the overthinking hits hardest. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why this happens, and how to stop letting a tiny notification have so much power over you. Let's be real. The moment you saw read with no reply, your brain didn't just notice it, it felt it. That little knot in your chest, the instant replay of everything you said, the "did I do something wrong?" loop that just wouldn't stop. You're not being dramatic. There's actual psychology behind why this hits so hard, and that's exactly what we're unpacking today. Before we start, drop a comment. What's the longest you've ever waited after being left on read? Hours? Days? No judgment. I'm genuinely curious. And if you're someone who replays conversations at night instead of sleeping, hit subscribe. You're exactly who this channel is for. Now let's get into it. Before we get into it, I want you to sit with this for a second. You've probably told yourself 100 times to just stop overthinking it, and it never worked. That's not a willpower problem. That's not you being weak. That's your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. And once you understand why, everything starts to make a little more sense. By the way, have you ever caught yourself checking your phone every 5 minutes after being left unread? Drop a guilty in the comments. You're definitely not alone. Here's what's actually going on. Your brain has one job it takes very seriously: figuring out whether you're accepted or rejected by the people around you. This goes back thousands of years, way before smartphones, before texting, before the internet even existed. Back then, being excluded from your group wasn't just awkward, it was genuinely dangerous. So your brain learned to treat social silence as a warning sign. Fast forward to today, and that same instinct is still running in the background every time you pick up your phone. It doesn't know you're just waiting on a text. It just knows someone went quiet, and quiet, to your brain, has always meant something's wrong. And here's the part that really puts it into perspective. The emotional sting you feel when you're left on read isn't weakness or overthinking. It's your brain doing its job a little too well. It was built for a world that no longer exists, reacting to a problem that probably isn't even real. But knowing that, that's where the power starts to shift. Because once you understand the machine, you can stop letting the machine run you. And trust me, once you see what uncertainty does on top of all this, it gets even more interesting. Here's the thing nobody talks about. It's not actually the read that destroys your peace. It's the not knowing. If someone replied and said, "Hey, I'm upset with you," that would sting. But at least you'd know. Your brain could process it, deal with it, move on. What your brain genuinely cannot handle is a blank space where an answer should be. Uncertainty is like an open wound. Your mind keeps poking at it, not to make things worse, but because it's desperately trying to find something solid to hold on to. And that's exactly when the overthinking spiral kicks in. Your brain hates unanswered questions, so it does the only thing it knows how to do. It starts generating answers on its own. Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe they're annoyed. Maybe I said something weird and didn't even realize it. One thought leads to another, and before you know it, you've constructed an entire story, a whole narrative about what went wrong, based on absolutely zero real information. Psychologists actually have a name for this tendency. They call it filling in the gaps. Your mind would rather invent a painful explanation than sit comfortably with not knowing. And the worst part? It almost always invents the worst possible one. Not because that's what's true, but because your brain is wired to prepare for the worst-case scenario. So if you've ever caught yourself going from, "they haven't replied," to, "they probably hate me," in under 3 minutes, now you know exactly why. And what happens next? when you add emotional expectations on top of all this. That's where things get really interesting. Think about how natural it feels to expect a reply. You send a message, and almost instantly, some part of your brain is already waiting for the response. It doesn't feel like an expectation. It feels like just how conversations work. And that's exactly the point. Somewhere along the way, digital communication rewired our social instincts. We didn't just adopt texting as a tool, we built an entire emotional rulebook around it. Message in, message out. That's the unspoken deal. And when someone breaks that deal, even without meaning to, your brain registers it as a disruption, like a song that stops right before the final note. Something feels off, and you can't quite let it go. What makes this even trickier is that the expectation isn't just about getting a reply, it's about what the reply represents. When someone responds, it's not just information, it's validation. It's proof that you matter to them, that the conversation was worth their time, that you were worth their time. So when the reply doesn't come, it's not just a missing message, it's a missing signal. And your brain, which is constantly scanning for signs that you're valued and included, notices that absence immediately and starts asking questions you were never meant to have to answer on your own. The uncomfortable truth is that we've handed a lot of emotional power to something as small as a notification. And once you really see that clearly, something shifts. But here's what most people never stop to consider. Why does any of this feel so personal in the first place? Here's something that might make you a little uncomfortable, and I say that with love. When you're left on read, and your first thought is, what did I do wrong? That's not just insecurity talking. That's a deeply human cognitive pattern called personalization. Your brain has a default setting that takes neutral, ambiguous situations and routes them directly back to you, not because you're self-centered, but because your mind is always trying to make sense of the world through the only lens it has access to, your experience. So when something feels off in a social interaction, the brain's first instinct isn't, maybe they're having a rough day. It's maybe I did something wrong every single time. And the worst part? It happens so fast, so automatically, that most people never even notice it's happening. And here's what makes it worse. The personalization bias doesn't come with a warning label. It just quietly rewrites the story in the background. Someone didn't reply because they were slammed at work. Your brain files it as rejection. They saw the message while driving and forgot to respond. Your brain files it as being ignored. They're just terrible at texting in general, and you know this about them. And yet somehow, your brain still finds a way to make it about you. The reality and the interpretation couldn't be further apart, but your brain doesn't care about reality. It cares about pattern recognition. And if you've spent years associating silence with disapproval, maybe from a parent who went cold when they were upset, or a friendship that ended without explanation, then your brain has been quietly running that same program ever since. It's not a flaw, it's a learned response, but that doesn't mean you're stuck with it. Here's the reframe that actually helps. Next time you're left on read and your brain starts building a case against yourself, try this. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong? Ask, what are 3 things that have nothing to do with me that could explain this? Maybe they're overwhelmed, maybe their phone died, maybe they opened the message mid-conversation and got pulled away. It sounds almost too simple. But what you're actually doing is interrupting the personalization loop before it snowballs. You're giving your brain an alternative pattern to run. And over time, that small shift changes everything. Because the goal isn't to stop caring. It's to stop letting your brain write fiction and present it to you as fact. And once you start seeing that clearly, what comes next might just be the most important piece of this whole conversation. So here's where we land. Your brain isn't broken. It's not being dramatic. It's doing exactly what it was wired to do, scanning for danger, filling in gaps, making everything personal. The problem isn't that you feel things deeply. The problem is that nobody ever handed you a manual for what's actually happening inside your head when a notification triggers a spiral. Well, now you have one, But here's the part that's on you. Understanding this is step 1. Actually catching yourself in the middle of the spiral, pausing, questioning the story your brain is telling you, choosing a different pattern. That's where the real work happens. And yeah, it takes practice. It's not going to click perfectly the first time. But every single time you pause before the spiral takes over, you're rewiring something. Slowly, quietly, you're teaching your brain that silence isn't a threat, that you're okay even when you don't have an answer, that your worth isn't measured in response times. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean this genuinely. Has this ever kept you up at night? Have you ever caught yourself replaying a conversation at 2 a.m., trying to figure out what you did wrong, based on nothing but a read receipt? Drop it in the comments. Be honest. You might be surprised how many people are going through the exact same thing. And sometimes, just knowing that makes the spiral a little quieter. And if this video gave you even one thing to think about, one small shift in how you see your own brain, then do yourself a favor and subscribe. Turn on notifications too, because this channel exists for exactly this, helping you understand what's going on inside your head, so your nights get a little less loud. Every video is one more tool, one more piece of the puzzle, and you deserve to have the full picture. I'll see you in the next one.